Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome and thank you for attending Diamond IT's virtual event, Work Securely and Effectively Anywhere. My name's Luke Russell and I'm both the General Manager for Diamond IT Sydney and I'll be your host for today's webinar. I do have a little bit of housekeeping to go through before we move on to the more exciting content and product demonstrations. And we do have a lot to cover in today's 45-minute webinar. And due to the large number of questions that we've had from pre-registered by attendees, I'll work to keep us to the agenda to make sure we have some time to answer them all. However, please do send through any questions you may have as you listen to the presentations today, and we will aim to answer as many of those as possible. But at the same time, don't worry if you miss out on part of today's webinar. It is being recorded and it will be available for attendees to download later in the week. And also, if due to time we don't get to your question, our panel of experts will answer any questions that's submitted to them and they will also be available for attendees later in the week. Firstly, let me begin by introducing and sharing a bit about today's panel of industry experts. Pierre Delage, Business Manager for Power Software for the Asia Pacific region, and Jeff Moten, Software Development Manager here at Diamond IT. Power Software focuses specifically on developing and making available technology that drives communication and collaboration, transforming the way organisations work and really helping employees stay focused. Especially important is Power's commitment to the end user experience, which we will get to see later in the demo elements of the webinar. We're also joined by Jeff Moten, Diamond IT's resident software advisor and expert in transforming business practices using technology you likely already own and are familiar with. Again, that's a concept we're going to cover in more detail later on, but welcome, gents.
Thank you, Luke.
Good morning, everyone. Look, to get us started and to add some context to today's conversation, let me talk a little bit about the challenges within the current business environment. If you follow me back to mid to late 2019, the numbers of organisations that were talking about digital disruption were modest at the time, and they likely did so because they were embarking on a planned digital transformation or a program of work to improve their overall digital maturity. And usually that was in pursuit of improvements in growth, sustainability, or some flavour of operational effectiveness. If we fast forward to early 2020, the number of organisations dealing with unplanned digital disruption skyrocketed due to the acute direct and also the indirect organisational impacts of this coronavirus. Right now, it's the third quarter of 2020, and here at Diamond IT, we're continuing to support large numbers of organisations that still remain unsure about how to pivot and transition their business in response to this growing digital disruption and the uncertainty surrounded by the pandemic. And at the same time, we've been listening and identifying into patterns in the challenges businesses are inviting us to work with them to solve. At Diamond, we haven't really been surprised to hear that organisations are commonly dealing with a workforce that's becoming more siloed as they reactively move to these new remote working environments. They're telling us it's difficult and time consuming for the newly formed remote teams to find and access the corporate information they need to do their jobs. And this is creating impacts to the customer experience and often also their overall organisational reputation. There's a level of consistency in our conversations with business leaders as they talk about the toll isolation is having on employee wellness. We're hearing curiosity around how technology can now play an even more important role in shaping new or preserving healthy corporate culture. Pleasingly for us, there's a renewed recognition that technology can bring people together, encourage collaboration, and promote new ways of working, whether it be through video and chat, dashboards, document access, targeted news, content, and announcements. The underlying concept is always the same, and that is to ensure the information and the services are available for your staff when they need it, where they're already working, and where they choose to spend their time, likely using investments your organisation has already made. It is true, the elevated profile of technology has been pleasing to hear. However, questions are being raised around cybersecurity, governance, corporate compliance, we're also finding interesting contrast in the macro topics, such as the digital divide and this perception that the seemingly ubiquitous nature of internet access these days serves as its own panacea to working securely and effectively. These are the common concerns on the minds of the many business leaders we're speaking with. Investment cost is also a significant factor in the current climate. Risk-averse mindsets are driving constraints within operating budgets, and quite rightly, compelling business owners and tech leaders to look at technology consolidation options and how they can innovate using the investments they've already made to drive downward pressure on the bottom line. But at the same time, modern work and security practices have become really critical to every organization's success, and the signs indicate those practices look to become the new normal for all of us. I just want to borrow someone else's message that really resonated with me personally when I heard it, and that was that work will be something you do, not somewhere you go, and the businesses that will be successful in the future will be able to think through flexible working in all its dimensions and bring it to life through technology. So, knowing this, what is the opportunity for everyone who's joined us on this webinar today? Well, we're going to explore modern and appropriate solutions to some real business challenges as they relate to business continuity, security, productivity, and your most important asset, your people. We're going to show you how you can create organizational resiliency through technologies like PAL in combination with a partner like us at Diamond IT, who's invested in aligning its use to the way your organization works and the culture you've built using technology you likely already own. So with that as serving as a bit of context for the rest of the webinar, I'd like to hand over to Jeff and Pierre to get into the demos and really show us how this is done. Over to you, gents.
Thank you, Luke. That very neatly summarises the concerns that are raised in our conversations with customers. And it doesn't matter whether they're new to the Microsoft 365 platform or old hands. And that's because the whole area is evolving so rapidly that a missing feature an organisation needs 1 month can be there literally the next month. But before we move on to the demonstrations, I'd like to just pause for a moment and talk about the technology we'll be showcasing today. So often when people think of Office, they tend to think email and the traditional Office applications like Excel, Word, PowerPoint. But now it is much, much more. And that's why Microsoft has changed the name from Office 365 to Microsoft 365. Under the Microsoft 365 banner, we now have an abundance of options, which you can see coming on your screen at the moment, and they're all eagerly waiting to help enhance your working life. And these are complemented by AI-powered services for information protection, security management, threat protection, and compliance. I'd just like for everyone to think about that for a moment. As an SME, you gain the benefit of enterprise-grade data protection, cybersecurity safeguards, compliance management, and for a bargain basement price. And that's via a subscription that you can dial up or down on a monthly basis. So, winding back, for every Microsoft 365 business subscription, the one you bought primarily for email or Office documents, it also includes 2 transformational apps, SharePoint and Teams, just sitting there waiting to be used for free. Pierre will shortly demo some practical examples of how we can solve standard business challenges using SharePoint and Teams. Although these products are part of the story, they form the foundation of almost every successful digital transformation journey. Both these services have exploded in usage in response to COVID-19. For example, Teams increased from 32 million daily active users in early March to over 75 million by the end of April. That's just the latest figures we have, but a 200% increase in 2 months. These platforms have become the clear choice for organisations adapting to the challenges of modern work, and Microsoft has responded by scaling up its R&D resources to provide significant new features regularly that meet customer requirements. Similarly, Diamond, as a trusted advisor to our clients, has committed its resources to keep current with these rapidly evolving environments in order to be able to craft for you efficient solutions based on the technologies that people are now using to use and choose to spend their time. So in keeping with this commitment, Diamond have partnered with PAL because they are a leader in enhancing the value of SharePoint Teams. PAL's product suite accelerates adoption and enriches the user experience, meaning that your team will start realizing those benefits much sooner. So if you're a user of Microsoft 365, you already have the foundations of what you will see here today. And beyond improving the returns to your staff and organization by introducing PAL, there's no further investment required. So, and by choosing to work securely within the SharePoint and Teams environment, you make it easy for your staff to collaborate, share files, and communicate. And by adding PAL software and Diamond IT, it becomes more efficient, more engaging, and more productive. So with that, I'll hand over to Pierre to demonstrate Teams and SharePoint enhanced with PAL.
Thank you, Geoff. Let me just share my screen real quick so I can give you a demonstration. But while I do that, I wanted to, thank Geoff and Luke for the opportunity to discuss these interesting topics in these rather weird times. And just to give you a little bit of a background and to kind of reiterate what Luke and Geoff said previously, at PAL Software, we look at providing solutions that will help you get a state-of-the-art digital workplace using the technologies you already have invested in. Our solutions go on top of SharePoint and Microsoft Teams and aim at bringing your Microsoft 365 stack into one place, making it simple and user-friendly for your people to access information from anywhere or any device, stay productive and engaged, while you can be rest assured the right levels of security and governance are in place. So what I'd like to do here is to take you through one of our demo environments and give you a glimpse of what can be achieved with the PAL software solutions. What you need to keep in mind here is that these demo environments are completely out of the box using the templates we provide. And we work with partners like Diamond IT because they bring their expertise to build and implement your digital workplace tailored to your specific needs while leveraging these templates and technologies we provide. So basically, everything you will see here can be completely changed and customized based on your needs, whether it's from a design or feature standpoint. And so today I want to focus on showcasing features that will help you with three topics that are very relevant to these times. So we'll talk about business continuity, productivity and collaboration, and finally, remote team engagement. So here, and just to confirm that everybody can see my screen, I believe so. Here, as you can see, we are on SharePoint. So what I'm showcasing here is really PAL Intranet, the Intranet in the box solution we provide, and where Diamond IT is able to leverage sets of templates, widgets, and so on to accelerate the whole process of designing, deploying, and managing your intranet on SharePoint, essentially. So as you can see, the first thing you will be able to see here is that we are on SharePoint. You have the SharePoint header on top here with the Microsoft 365 waffle on the left-hand side. Now, what a lot of clients like to do is to hide the fact that they're on SharePoint, and this can be locked in by default as well. And that will help you reinforce your corporate branding by adding your own logo and colors and design to the intranet. The other thing you will notice here on this homepage, and that is really specific to the design we provide and not to SharePoint out of the box, it is this nice little floating menu here on the right-hand side that will help your staff navigate through the intranet really. So on this floating menu here, you have access to your Delve profile, which again is part of your Microsoft subscription, as well as all of your notifications within the intranet on SharePoint. You also here have your search function, which is actually a web part that we provide out of the box, and that leverages both the SharePoint search and the Graph API. So it allows you to really search across the entire Microsoft 365 tenant, essentially, and really search across different types of content. And like I mentioned, it's all about configuration here. So if you wanted to restrict the search to only certain types of content, it can absolutely be done at the back end. Here we have a nice little My Favorites web part, which will help your employees have quick access to their favorite applications, sites, and links. And as an administrator, you're also able to bookmark applications for your employees directly here. Also, something really important, and that's really important for your power users, so your users that are going to be contributing to the intranet. Here we've really simplified the whole process of contributing to the intranet. So here your power users, so people who have the right level of rights, will be able to directly add content to the intranet from this interface and without having to go into the backend. For example, if I wanted to create a news, I could do it directly from here by just filling this form. So it becomes very simple for your power users to contribute and communicate with the rest of the workforce through this interface. Now, if we take a look at the home page here, as you can see, we have a nice corporate news slider to showcase your top corporate news. And here on the right hand side, we have something really important that can be replicated in really all sites across the intranet, is the ability to display sets of quick links, and that will help you give an access to your employees to other SharePoint site or external systems that they need to access on a regular basis. If I go further down on the home page here, we have some nice SharePoint news web parts, which will allow you again to push information and news to your staff. And here in this example, we're really showcasing how you can target content based on user profile. So in this example, my demo account is part of the HR department, so I am just seeing the HR news. What we do here also is give the ability for the end user to tweak their preferences and be able to see more than just HR. And obviously, again, it's all about configuration. So it can be done at the back end if you wanted your end users to not be able to tweak their preferences, or if you wanted your end users to see all news at once. You also have here on the right-hand side SharePoint calendar web parts, which will help you display your corporate events directly within the intranet on SharePoint. And here we have a nice little tabbed web part that we, again, provide out of the box to our partners to design the intranet. And here it is configured in a way where you will be able to display your new joiners, your job offers, birthdays, social information, and policies. So here we can also display documents, for example. This web part, again, it's all about configuration. So if you wanted Diamond IT, for example, to configure this web part to display your last events, your recent documents, and your corporate news, for example, it can absolutely be done. And that's where a partner like Diamond IT adds a lot of value to your project. On the right-hand side here, you have a nice web part that will help you engage your workforce. We have a nice polling function here, basically, to raise opinion across the organization. And here you have another example of how you can integrate another part of Microsoft 365 here with an integration of a Microsoft form with the same intent of collecting feedbacks from your end users. And finally, at the bottom of the page here, we have an example of how you can integrate videos very easily within your intranet. And here we're leveraging Microsoft Stream, which again is part of your Microsoft subscription. Now, moving on to a second page here that I wanted to show you today is the My Board page. It's a page I personally really like because it is really your personal space on the intranet, basically. So everything here will be related to the end user himself or herself. So here on this My Board page, we have an example of a set of applications that can be integrated and that will be really related to the end user himself. It's just taking a second to load here. I guess I have the demo gods with me today.
Just jump back to your the previous screen. I really liked the web part that you described earlier on in the context of people moving from traditional working environments in the office where they could move to meet with a colleague in the space they traditionally work, to now trying to continue that level of engagement and collaboration with people when they're working from new locations or in some places interstate. This is a great example of from what I can see, a way to keep connected with staff and to keep collaborating on content and really actually surfacing that information that's important for them to do their job every day in a place that they can easily access.
Absolutely, and that's the whole idea, is really to provide the ability to centralize the information and make sure that your end users are empowered with everything they need on a daily basis, whether they are in the office or working remotely from home. They can have access to everything within that that online platform, essentially. And again, leveraging the Microsoft stack that you already have. So here, coming back to my my board page, here we have basically access to the user profile. So here we are pulling a lot of information from Delve, which again is part of the subscription, to pull the biography, contact details, and so on, and with quick access to your Delve profile, your OneDrive, Yammer, Outlook, and Teams here directly. Then moving further down, you have a perfect example of, and something that is really important in these times, the social aspect of things. And we have an application within Microsoft 365 that does the job just great. It's Yammer, and that's really intended at filling the gap when it comes to the social aspect of things on the digital workplace. And here you can directly integrate your Yammer discussions within your personal space on the intranet, so that your end users don't have to open Yammer in as a separate application in a separate window. They can access it directly from here. You have then examples of other applications you can integrate, for example, your Teams, to have an overview of the teams you're part of, your recent documents, for example, which is great for employees when they stop working the day before they come back to the office. They can retrieve their most recent documents directly in the intranet. And here at the bottom, an example of Outlook integration with your recent emails, next events, and also your tasks with To Do. Now, other pages I wanted to show you today is the department pages, which are really critical to a successful intranet project. So here we have obviously different standard department pages, and here we are just leveraging the templates that we offer out of the box to be able to create these department pages in a very quick manner while leveraging this great design. So for example, here I am showing you the communication department template, where you will be able to very easily display, again, a set of quick links that can direct to external systems, for example, or other SharePoint sites, with your communication news as well here. So leveraging the SharePoint web parts. Here again, we have the SharePoint calendar web parts. And at the bottom here, I wanted to showcase how we can integrate more than just Microsoft 365. So here you have an example of how you can integrate a Twitter feed or Facebook feed, for example, very easily, because these are connectors that we provide out of the box as well. So it just becomes a matter of configuration. It doesn't require any custom development, essentially. Another page that has become very popular in the past couple of months, and it's actually a template that we've released at the very beginning of the pandemic, and that has been heavily used by a lot of our clients, is our crisis management template. So here we give you the ability to basically leverage this template out of the box to very quickly put together a site to respond to a specific crisis and communicate properly with your workforce at any time, essentially, and provide them that space to get answers to their questions, essentially. Another template that is very good in terms of employee engagement and in terms of being able to find the right piece of information within the intranet is the different hubs we can build. So here I am going to showcase you the event hub, but we can also have, for example, a news hub or even a document hub where you gather all your documentation. Here it's the idea is to aggregate a certain type of content, so your end users are able to search for a specific piece of information. So here we are aggregating events within the intranet with specific sets of refiners on the left-hand side based on what is available in the different events, obviously. And another page I wanted to show you here in the same spirit, but more from a social aspect of things, and again, which is going to be great to build corporate culture and have your employees mingle in some other ways, is the classify ads. So here, taking the same concept which we saw just earlier, your employees will be able to very quickly. So it's just loading. Let me just reload this page. But essentially, your employees will be able to very quickly advertise their classify ads and for example, advertise their for some items they would like to sell and things like that very easily within the workplace. So really sorry. the demo gods are not with me today. There we go. And here your employees are very easily able to publish ads on the intranet and be able to socialize that way as well. Another widget I wanted to show you, and that is again very relevant to these days, and keeping that topic in mind, is the FlexDesk widget that we've released also during at the beginning of the pandemic. And the idea here was for us to think about how we're going to help customers go back to the office in a very safe manner. So here with the FlexDesk widget, you are basically able to very easily upload a map of your desk, and so that your end users can book their desk before going back to the office and have a view on who is going to be in the office at a specific point in time. Now, it's been actually quite interesting because, as I've mentioned earlier, it's all about configuration for our solutions. And we've actually seen a lot of customers that have been creative with this widget and have used it for example, for booking parking spots. So they've actually found other use cases for this very widget. And the last page I wanted to show you here on this demo environment, and that is, again, always critical to a successful digital workplace project, and especially within these times, is the ability to display a proper people directory. So that your staff are able to find resources in a very easy way. So here what we're doing is we're leveraging the Azure Active Directory, which is again most likely part of your existing subscription, to be able to display a proper people directory within the SharePoint intranet very easily. And again, with sets of refiners on the left-hand side, based on the information available in the user profile, so it becomes a lot easier for your staff to find people within the organization. Now, what's nice is if I click on Linda here, for example, you have a nice little ID card that pops on the right side with the contact information of the employee, as well as last documents, obviously based on permissions. And finally, you are able to implement a small org chart as well here and find the contact information directly from here. So it becomes very simple to navigate through resources in the organization with these tools. Now, another topic that has become very trendy in the past couple of days, and like Jeff mentioned earlier, is obviously Microsoft Teams. I'm sure by now you've all heard of Microsoft Teams. We have seen a tremendous amount of customers rolling out Teams in the past couple of months to ensure business continuity, to provide new tools to their employees to stay productive and keep collaborating, although working remotely. And so what we've done here is so let me just reload this, apologies. What we've done here is basically provided the ability to our customers to have their SharePoint intranet as a custom application within Microsoft Teams directly. So that way, sorry, somehow I got locked out. Apologies, it's just going to take a second. So that way you are able to have your end users that are spending more and more time on Microsoft Teams. You are able to meet them on Teams with the SharePoint intranet, basically. So they are able to stay within Teams and access all of the corporate information they need to have access to perform their daily work. So here, just to show you quickly, you are able to display the exact same demo environment I showed you earlier, but within Teams directly. And here what you're able to do as well is to change the logo and the name of the application. So it's really your own intranet within Microsoft Teams, basically. So this is something we've released recently and that has seen a tremendous success with our existing customers so far. Now, staying on the Microsoft Teams topic, obviously with the rise of Microsoft Teams, there has been a lot of concerns raised around usage, around governance, and around how do I govern Microsoft Teams and the creation of Teams so that my Microsoft Teams tenant stays tidy and neat, while I'm still empowering my users to use it to collaborate at its best, essentially. So what we've come up with here is an application called Power Teams, which is a Microsoft Teams application. So it's available directly in the Microsoft Teams store to be downloaded, and there is actually an automatic free trial to try it without any commitment, so that you can see if it makes any sense. But here the idea is really to fill some of the gaps that are left by Microsoft when it comes to governance on Microsoft Teams, essentially, and also to ease the adoption for your end users. So here on this, once it's rolled out to your end users, this is what your end users will have access to essentially. And here it's all about user adoption and making it more simple for them to navigate teams and to create new teams essentially. So here you have a nice little end user dashboard with all of your teams, but not displayed as a classic teams list, as you'll notice. Here you have your teams displayed as tiles, which makes it a lot easier to visualize your different teams. And what we are showcasing here is the most recent documents within the team. So you can understand what is the most recent activity within the different teams you're a part of. On the left-hand side, you have also sets of refiners, which is really important, and that is really going to help your staff search for the right teams. And as you can tell, it becomes a lot easier to find your teams using these refiners than just going through a list of 200 teams when you're part of many teams. You're also able to display different views on your teams here as an end user. So you can have a view on all of your teams. You can make your teams your favorites, and you can also have a view on promoted teams. Promoted teams are quite interesting because they are teams that are promoted by the administrator. So this is actually one of the best use case for promoted teams is for your new joiners. Obviously, when they're going to start teams at the very beginning, they will have no idea what teams they need to be a part of. And here with the promoted teams tab, you have an opportunity as an admin to promote teams to your end users and to push teams to your end users, the teams they need to be a part of essentially. And that can be done based on user profiles. So that way, if you wanted your marketing team to absolutely be a part of 4 specific teams, you can promote these teams specifically to your marketing team. Now, the other thing we can do here from an end user standpoint, as I mentioned earlier, is to create new teams. And here, the whole point of using Pile Teams is that your end users are not going to be able to create new teams from scratch anymore, which is the primary cause of your Microsoft Teams tenant becoming a huge mess. Here, your end users will have to create a new team, but leveraging a template that has been predefined by the administrator, essentially. So here, for example, if I wanted to show you very quickly how to create a new team using Pile Teams, the first step is obviously to choose a template. So here you have a list of templates available to you specifically, because you can really target templates to specific groups of people. And once you're good to go with a template, you can essentially click it and move on to the next step. Now here, as I mentioned, your end user is not going to be able to create their channels, their tabs, their applications, and so on, because that's all part of the template. Here, what the end user is going to have to do is just to fill in the information associated to the template. So to start with, you have to fill in the tags. Here for this template, I have 3 tags. They are all required. So I need to fill those in to be able to move on to the next step. So let's say that I'm going to create a team for my IT team in the UK for internal use only. Then I can move on to my team name. And here you will see that the organization has set a naming policy, which means that if my team is called Project A, for example, my actual team name is going to be a mix of tags and team name that has been predefined by the administrator. And at the backend, you are able to define as many naming conventions as you need to have, essentially. And that will help you have consistency across naming in your environment. So here I can put in a very quick description and then move on to the next step. And in the next step, what you're going to do is choose your team's privacy. So here I actually do not have any choice. It's been set to private at the template level. So I don't have a choice here. And then I can pick my team owners and team members. And here you will see some interesting governance features. As you can see, you have a minimum amount of owners and members, which is actually a really important governance rule, because you're going to start avoiding use cases you really don't want to happen within teams, such as having, for example, one team member creating teams just for himself or creating teams just to share documents one-on-one. That's typically what Teams is not made for. So here, by having a minimum amount of 3 team members, you're already avoiding all these case scenarios. You're also able here to have default team owner and default team members. So these team owners and team members, I am not able to remove them as an end user creating my team because they've been set there at the template level. So here I'm just going to meet my minimum requirement. Otherwise, I am not able to move on to the next step. And there we go. And here, essentially, the final step is just to review the information you've put in, and you're able to create your team from here. So as you can see, it becomes very, very simple from an end user standpoint to create your teams. You just have to follow the steps, and it's all guided through, essentially. And from an admin standpoint, you can be rest assured that your end users are using the right settings because you have predefined these templates on your own before. Now, in order to have really 100% control over the team's creation process, what we've done as well, and that is available in the backend, is the ability to add an approval workflow. That way you will have 100% control over the team's creation process because you will need to have an approver approve the team creation before it is actually created. So here, for example, if I used a template that has an approval workflow, my team's creation request would go to this tab until it is actually approved by the approver. There is obviously plenty of other features that can be done with Parallel Teams, and I remain available should you want to learn more about Parallel Teams and Parallel Intranet, of course. But some of the things in Parallel Teams, for example, is the ability to manage external users at the template level, the ability to generate reports around inactive teams and take specific actions. You have also the ability to link automations to specific templates so that when your end users create new teams, they trigger an Azure automation or an automation through Power Automate, for example, which literally unlocks so many possibilities. And that's where also Diamond IT is here to help to provide you with the consulting service and provide you with the governance plan that will go with Parallel Teams for your Microsoft Teams environment, and also obviously build these further automations and tags and so on for your use case specifically. And that is essentially what I wanted to go through today. Thank you very much. I'll hand it back over to Luke.
Thanks, Pierre. I think compliance and governance are so important at the moment, and it's great to see that Powell have really baked that into the product and into the platform, and it's not an afterthought, which it often can be. But also takeaways for me in that part. We talked earlier on about the importance of bringing technology to the places people choose to spend their time, and I think you've really tapped into that concept and the end user experience, surfacing the intranet inside Teams where staff are already chatting and collaborating and connecting with each other. I think is a fantastic way to address that concept.
I'll jump in here if you like, guys. Thanks, Luke, and thank you, Pierre. I always enjoy your presentations, particularly because I know the hardest part for you is narrowing down the feature set that you have that you need to show in the time you have available. So again, thank you. To help get started, Diamond IT have developed a team of business improvement professionals that are ready to help and understand your specific needs. We have the design expertise plus the knowledge of security, governance, best practices that will help you overcome your existing business problems, or probably even more importantly, to help position your business to meet future challenges. And as Luke said earlier, this is using technology you likely already have and supported by the Powell software. So my last takeaway message is that there are very few operational business problems that cannot be addressed using some combination of the technologies available in the Microsoft 365 environment. And a conversation with Diamond IT is the first step. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, gents. You've certainly shown us a lot in a short amount of time today. We've seen some practices to reduce operational risk, ways to unlock the path to engaging and connecting with your workforce as organisations are embracing this working securely and effectively from anywhere concept. You've also helped us explore some practical solutions to address those common business challenges linked to modern work, and that organisations are struggling to overcome using technologies that perhaps some people joining on the webinar today have just realised that they may already own. So we're going to move now to the Q&A, just keeping an eye on time. I'd like to get into some of the questions that were pre-registered, as I mentioned at the start. We had a few coming through today, but I'm going to start with the pre-registered questions. And our first one is from Matt, who asked, is there such a thing as a trap or some sort of an alarm that goes off if your server or files are accessed from a country outside of Australia? And I thought, Jeff, this might be one that you would like to take.
Yeah, that sounds, it's a very good question. Thanks, Luke. There's a trap's kind of like a bit of a funny word, but what can be applied in the Microsoft 365 environment is a concept called conditional access, and that allows you to define policies and alerts for unusual activity. And particularly one of the primary ones is an attempt to access your Office 365, Microsoft 365 environment from a geolocation which is non-trusted. So you can explicitly exclude or include IP addresses, countries from actually even accessing your environment, and then be alerted to when that happens. There are a range of other signals that are available as well, but that is available with I think the Business Premium it starts at, and then the other subscriptions after that.
Okay, thanks, Jeff, and certainly thanks, Matt, for that question. The next question comes from Stephen, who has asked, can culture be effectively developed when people are not commingling in a workplace? I actually have a personal view on this one, so I thought I might answer. I've witnessed and been a part of some really highly engaged and effective remote teams. And I think the answer to that is simply yes, it can be. And however, to effectively develop culture for a remote workforce, I think an organisation needs to be really all in from the top down. You need to embrace remote culture and ways of working rather than making exceptions for it. I think if you do it the other way around, remote employees will feel excluded, they'll be less engaged, and essentially I think they'll be less productive as a result. Importantly too, I think you also need to prioritise health and wellness as part of corporate culture and really invest in making communication easy and obstacle-free for your staff. Choose tools that match your culture and foster communication. And that's why I think Teams is a really great example of a platform that does that, because it is flexible by design and it allows for formal and informal styles to coexist. So I think if you adopt technologies like Teams and you have that that recognition of the importance of corporate culture and it can be adopted from the top down, then yes, I think it can effectively be developed when you are working remotely. Great question though, thank you, Stephen. And the next question is from Andrew, who has asked, how do you encourage engagement and attention during an on-screen meeting, and how do you mitigate or alleviate fatigue from on-screen meetings? Pierre, I thought you would have some great ideas and maybe some advice on this one, if you're happy to take this question.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually, it's a question we've heard a lot, and it's a question I have probably asked myself as well in the past couple of months. Unfortunately, I think it's a question that Microsoft has heard as well, and they've released actually a lot of very cool tools on Microsoft Teams specifically to help relieve online meeting fatigues, really with concepts such as the Together mode, which is really aiming at reducing that fatigue. But I think live captions can also be a great option, and overall, I think something that a lot of organizations are not thinking about enough these days is to make sure that meetings are not too long, and I think 45 minutes is a great length for a meeting, and it'll allow your workforce to have that 15 minutes gap to rethink and really recharge before the next meeting.
Thanks, Pierre, and thank you, Andrew, for that question. I just want to move to a question we've had submitted today during the presentation. And that asks, we have staff working between the office and home. we are keen to build up our virtual meeting space and interaction. What are the basics we need to start, and how quickly can we get it up and running? Maybe I might throw this to both Jeff and Pierre. You might have individual or joint views on this one.
Yeah, I will jump in. Without sounding like a broken record, the answer is really to embrace Teams, because it, particularly over the last 12 months, has become an extremely rich environment for phone calls, for chat, for file storage, collaboration on documents. But also, the thing that doesn't get touched on is that it's actually an ongoing record. So rather than having miscellaneous email conversations or occasional phone calls that don't you don't have notes on, using the chat gives you that business history that is often difficult to find. So using Teams is very easy to start with. The primary area I would like to make clear is that, having been through the Teams journey ourselves, is to approach it from a governance perspective from the start. It's very easy for Teams to get out of control, and you can have 10 times as many teams as you have staff. And to know the purpose of a team needs to have a purpose, and the channels within a team need to have a purpose. So just a little bit of forethought, and your Teams journey will be quite smooth.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I 100% agree with Jeff's answer here. It was actually a perfect answer. In my opinion, Teams is absolutely the way to go. It's become so much more than just a meeting and chat platform in the past couple of years. And yeah, there's so much more to Teams these days, and that will allow you to do so much more so on the long run. But I also agree with Jeff's comment around governance, which is really important. And even if the amount of end users is not too large and the amount of teams is not too large, it's important to put a framework in place for the long run. We've had actually a lot of customers coming to us with not so many end users and not so many teams, but with no governance thought whatsoever. And they've been using Teams for the past 2 years, and as a result, it has ended up being a mess. And now they need to put in place some sort of framework. So it's important to have that long-term vision as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the answer to that question and for the question itself. And while I'm on the thank you train, I'd like to thank you both, Pierre and Jeff, for choosing to spend your morning with us, and all of you on the webinar as well for carving out some time out of your busy calendar to join us for this webinar. A copy of the presentation will be available shortly, but if in the meantime, if you've seen something in today's webinar that you'd like more information on, or if you are interested in getting started, please feel free to reach out to Diamond IT using the details on the screen. We'd love to have a conversation with you. I hope everyone has enjoyed today's presentation. We are almost exactly on time, and I hope to join you again on another webinar soon, but for now it's goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Luke. Thanks, Pierre, and thank you all.
Thank you all.